Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matthew, and I'm here as always with Venushan. And today we were joined by a very, very, very special guest, Jack Armstrong. You know his voice, you know who he is. If you've ever watched a Raptors game, if you've ever even been in Canada, you know who Jack Armstrong is. He's just a legend around here, one of the most iconic Canadian sports broadcasters, at least in my opinion. And we had a really, really good time talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. All right, Jack.
I just did the game on radio tonight. So.
Yeah. A big win. Okay. Okay, we're going to get started.
Yep.
Okay, Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Matthew. Pleasure to be on with you, and excited to talk hoops here.
I know you're just on audio right now, so you can't see, but I came prepared. I'm currently rocking my "Get That Garbage Outta Here" T-shirt from HelloJack.ca.
Oh, you are the man. I love it, Matthew. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so I got to give you a "Get That Garbage Outta Here."
I love it.
Iconic.
Is there a story behind that catchphrase, or how did that come about?
Actually, it is. There is, but it's a family show, so I'll give you the clean version. Basically, growing up in Brooklyn, you block a guy's shot or a guy blocks your shot. When they block it, they say, "Get that blanket blank out of here." So obviously, in the schoolyard, you could use that kind of language. On national television, you can't really use that language. So one time, I got really excited by a block by one of the Raptors, and I was about to say blanket blank, and that wouldn't have been a good look. So I just threw garbage in there. And at the time, our director, Troy Clara, who's now the director of the Toronto Blue Jays games, he goes in my ear and he goes, "Jackie," he goes, "that's pure gold. You got to use that." So from that point on, he says, "Oh, you got to use that on block shots. That's funny." So I started using it, and here we are.
Yeah, it's just stuck. I mean, everyone loves it. It's kind of your catchphrase, that or hello. I don't know. Pick one. They're both iconic in Toronto and Canada, I think.
Well, thank you. And I have fun with it. And our job as broadcasters is not only to inform, but is to entertain and to bring passion and excitement and celebrate the sport, celebrate not only the Raptors, but celebrate the NBA, the sport of basketball. So I hope it adds a smile to people's faces and a little bit of fun.
Well, you do that every day, every broadcast. That's exactly what you do. So, Jack, you obviously started out your career as a coach, and I mean that shows in your analysis of the games and just like how much of a passion you have for the game. How did you end up getting into broadcasting, and what led to you actually like starting with the Raptors in their early years?
I got fired. I was, if you look at my career record as the head coach in Niagara, I was 100 and 154. So, needless to say, that gets you a pink slip. So I always say what I do for a living now is like sports version of white collar crime. I've gone from being an idiot, and now they put a microphone in front of me, and I've become an expert. So it's I say it's the greatest scam going, So don't tell anybody. But so no, I mean, I have a master's in communications from Fordham, but the only reason I got that was it fit our practice schedule when I was coaching, and they offered me the opportunity to get a master's degree. So all I ever wanted to be was a coach. I never thought I'd even use communications. But, when I was coaching, a lot of people said to me, if you ever got out of coaching, because I used to spend a lot of time, obviously, on TV and radio, and I had my own TV show and my own radio show when I was the coach in Niagara. You spend a lot of time with reporters and pre-game, post-game press conferences and all that. And so, a lot of people said, "Hey, you'd be a natural at it. Give it a shot." I thought I'd do it for 1 year and then get right back into coaching. I had a year left on my contract when I left Niagara. So I had the opportunity to kind of, take a year off from coaching because I was burnt out. And, the broadcasting, I ended up doing got hired by a lot of the networks in the U.S. to do college basketball, the MSG network in New York, Fox Sports, ESPN, Empire Sports Network in Western New York. So I was doing that, and I got hired, obviously, as well by the Raptors. So I've been with the Raptors for 23 years. And, one thing led to another. And my first year was Vince Carter's rookie year. Chuck Swirsky and I were the radio broadcast team. And it became a really popular broadcast. And then little by little, the demand was there to get us on TV. And so I'm very fortunate. I've been able to have a fun time doing this the last 23 years and hope to do it as long as they'd like me.
Well, the last 23 years of Raptors basketball would not be the same without you as the voice. So thanks for making the change for our sake, at least.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And again, I only thought I'd do it for a year, but I had a great time with it the first year. And obviously, we had an amazing player in Vince Carter. We also had Tracy McGrady at the time, and a team that was going to start being good. And I just got in. It was like, I wasn't with the Raptors their first 3 years of existence because I was still coaching at the time. But when I came in, the Raptors was 16 and 66 that previous year, and things weren't good. And I just kind of got lucky. I got with a startup company, and I was able to kind of grow with the startup company, and and kind of develop a shtick as a broadcaster and grow with the game and help grow the game a little. And I'm very fortunate to have been part of it.
So going back to what you just said there, growing the game, I mean, like basketball was an afterthought for a long time, especially even in the early years of the Raptors. And now it's massive. It's one of the biggest sports in Toronto and even in the whole country of Canada. What does it feel like to just see how much it's grown and to have been such a big part of that over the last 20 years?
Well, it's very gratifying. Like tonight, obviously we're doing this podcast after the Raptors beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. I did the radio tonight, and the joy and the thrill of seeing Luguentz Dort, Chris Boucher, Kemp Birch. Unfortunately, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander tonight was hurt, but to see four of the guys on these two teams and the incredible performance by Boucher and Dort in the game in particular, three Montreal guys and an Ontario guy, it's just incredible. And basketball is the fastest growing sport in Canada. When I started as a coach at Niagara University in 1988, obviously Niagara University is right on the border of the United States and Canada. Our campus looks at Canada. It's on the river, the Niagara River separating the two countries. So I recruited in Canada quite a bit. And, when the NBA was announced that it was coming to Canada, I think it probably would have been 94, 95. I remember sitting with my assistant coaches saying to them, hey, guys, basketball is going to boom in Canada because there was a ton of talent and there were a lot of good players. But, once people got more familiar with the sport and the coaching got better, the play would get better. And, you turn a lot of kids onto the sport. And obviously, Canada is such a culturally diverse country, and it embraces, obviously immigration. And you have people coming from all over the world to Canada, and they don't come here with a passion for hockey. Basketball and soccer are the worldwide sports. So a lot of them pick up soccer and basketball, and little by little, we had Vince Carter, and then the game caught on a little bit, and so here we are, from my first day at Niagara in '88 to now, 33 years later, and I've been with the Raptors 23 years. To see where it's come, I still say the best is yet to come because, when I look at the fact that Canada's number 2 in representation in the world in the NBA, yet there's so many more things that can be accomplished, that I'd like to see. It was funny, I was at a golf tournament before the pandemic in Halifax, and Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon were there. This was right after the Raptors won a championship, and they wanted to talk all about the Raptors. And I'm like, they were really into it. I said to them, what would have happened if what just happened where the Raptors won a title and you were 5 or 6 years old, would you be picking up skates and a stick, or would you be picking up a ball? And they looked at me and they said, that's a really good question. So my point is, how many little girls and little boys got the bug to play basketball just a few years ago when the Raptors won the title? And we're going to see another bump from that. So to me, I still think the best is yet to come. I think on the international stage, I'd love to see a WNBA team in Canada. I would love to see a second NBA team in Canada. Love to get a team back in Vancouver, or maybe we get a team in Montreal or whatever. But I think there's so much potential here. And it's funny, people in the United States don't realize this. I don't think very many people in Canada realize this, because we always get compared to hockey. But recently I got a press release from the New York Yankees, which is one of the iconic franchises in all sports in the world. And they put out their TV ratings for early in the season. And I looked at their numbers, and if you look at the number of households that the YES network gets into that broadcast the Yankee games, it's about the same as the entire country of Canada, because Canada's only got 37 million people. The numbers for the Raptor TV games are better than the New York Yankee games. And again, you're talking about the New York Yankees. And so my point is, this still, to me, is a sleeping giant. And I still think this is a very much underappreciated sport in Canada, because we're constantly butting heads with hockey. And I still think that, the culture still favors hockey. But I think more and more we're getting an opportunity to sit at the big boy table. But there's still a lot of areas for growth that have to happen, that need to happen. And I hope to see them happen in the years to come.
Yeah, for sure. And we can notice it too as young Canadians. When we were around, there wasn't a lot of nets on all these driveways, but now when we look around Toronto and other neighborhoods, there's nets in almost every driveway now. So the growth is definitely huge.
It's a great observation you make, and I think I'll never forget when I first got to the Raptors. I'll never forget talking at the time. Richard Petty was the president and CEO, and he said, that's got to be the dream. That someday when you're driving down a street in Canada, not only are there kids out shooting pucks, but they're shooting hoops. And every neighborhood is littered with baskets. And I agree with you. And that to me is the potential, that there's little girls and little boys out playing the sport. And, you have young ladies playing in the WNBA and playing Division I college basketball in the U.S., and they're playing in universities across Canada, and they're playing overseas. And you got little boys playing NCAA Division I basketball in the United States and all across universities in Canada. They're not only playing in the NBA, but they're playing overseas. And so kids are seeing it now. They're seeing that dream before their eyes and saying, why not me? Why not them?
Yeah, totally. And speaking of the explosion and the growth and just some of the historic basketball moments that have happened in Canada recently, was you were able to call, you were broadcasting Game 6 of the finals on TSN. Was that the best moment of your broadcasting career?
Well, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's the I guess when you have an ice cream sundae and you put the little cherry on top, that would be the cherry on top. And yeah, I mean, that's the largest basketball audience in Canadian basketball history, TV audience, and it's one of the largest audiences in Canadian TV, sports TV in the last 20 years. So, to me, if you, and I always do this, and I don't think people here do it, they need to. If you were to look at the numbers on the broadcast that night, and you times it by 8.5, which is the population of the United States compared to Canada, you would never see those TV numbers in the United States ever for a basketball game. Mm-hmm. So people look at Canada as this hockey country, but per capita, people are tuning in, people are excited, and to me, I think that's what drives me and what excites me is the future growth of the sport. And so having been part of that historical event was a remarkable experience and one that I'll never forget. And I was honored and privileged to be part of it. And I always joke, I'm just a little caraway seed in the bakery of life. You know, I'm just a small little speck, just trying to promote it a little bit and be an ambassador for it. And, you know, when I'm on the air, not only am I trying to promote, obviously, the Raptors, but I'm trying to promote the other team. I'm trying to promote the sport of basketball, the NBA, the joy, the passion of it. There's going to be years where the Raptors are good. There's going to be years where the Raptors aren't good. I've had both of those experiences, multiple years, and you know, and that's the test of time that you got to be able to do both. It's very easy to call games when they're winning. It's a lot harder when they're not good. It's a lot harder when the games aren't good, and that's where you earn it. And but that's how you promote the game. That's how you keep people going.
Yeah. So fast forward to this year, you were not able to obviously be at the game. The Raptors aren't even in Toronto. They're not even in Canada. What you're trying, you guys are trying your best virtually. Sometimes you don't have the right angle. It's hard to see if the ball actually went in the net sometimes. Is what's the hardest thing about being remote, not actually being at the game? What's the hardest thing for someone who's been broadcasting for 20 years?
It's challenging. You know, I mean, obviously the fact that we did the games for the bubble from Orlando, we did the games from Oakville,
yeah,
and, remotely, and now we're doing the games from Scotiabank Arena, both TV and radio remotely. A few things. Number one, you know, most arenas there's no fans or very few, so there's no juice, no vibe coming from the arena. That's a problem, a challenge. So I try to stand during the games to keep my energy going, to keep my enthusiasm going, because again, I'm an ambassador for the sport. I got to keep you in tune and engaged and excited. I think the other thing would be, again, the challenges you mentioned, different camera angles, you know, trying to get stats, just all the things that, and just being able to have a true feel and a true connection. And I think the biggest challenge is being able to be connected. It's really hard when you're not around people every day. I don't care how many Zoom calls you have, how many text messages or phone calls you have. It's just not the same. And when you haven't been around a team now since March, I don't know, 8th or 9th of 2020, we're going on 13 plus months of not being around these people as human beings. It's a lot harder to kind of stay in that, to replicate that and to have that feeling of being able to relay it. So to me, that's a big challenge. But nonetheless, you do the best you can. You work your way through it, and you do the best you can get through it. I hope we're doing okay. It's not easy, but I give Matt and Leo and Jonesy and Eric and Sherm and everybody a lot of credit. We're trying our best.
Yeah, no, the broadcast, it's been perfect. It's been great. It's just there's only so much there's just only so much you can do. I don't know, like sometimes even watching the games you can tell the players they have to create their own energy, right? Like when there's no, you make a big three or a big dunk or something, there's no roar from the crowd. Sometimes like games turn when players are able to just find like internal motivation and energy for themselves.
Oh, no doubt. It's not an easy thing. It makes it really hard. And it's hard on everybody. And it's a true test of, your professionalism as a player and your self-motivation and your focus and your maturity. And I give these players a lot of credit. And I give the coaches and executives and the trainers, everybody involved. It's been tough on everybody. And they're trying to find a way as best as they can. So, and hopefully it brings a little joy and diversion to people that are, we're all going through a tough time right now with this pandemic.
Yeah, it's the most exciting part of my day. Most days, just looking forward to the game at night.
Same here.
And so pivoting to like the actual Raptors team just for a second. So it's obviously kind of uncharted territory for the Raptors this year. They're not in a playoff spot. I think they're right after this win. I think they're in that 10 seed for that play-in. But nonetheless,
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a few years at least. It's been the better part of a decade since the Raptors have been in a position like this. But they've been in a lot of the games that they've lost. I think they have a positive plus minus this year. They've lost a lot of one-score games, a lot of really close games. They have a nice young core. Like obviously Siakam, we know what he can do. OG, I think has had a really, really good year this year. Fred, we know who he is. And Trent, I've been really, really impressed by Gary Trent on both ends. So I'm just wondering like what your thoughts are. How optimistic are you about this young core and what they can do in the immediate future?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think if they were healthy this year and didn't have some of the protocol challenges and all that, they would absolutely be a top 8 team. They'd be a playoff team already. So there's no doubt about it. You look at all their challenges and guys, the season ends today. They are in the play-in game.
Yeah.
I tell you what, do you want to play the Raptors in a play-in game? I don't think anyone would want to play them. I think that you have a healthy Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. Those 4 guys didn't play tonight. If they're healthy, those guys have championship rings on their fingers.
Yeah.
You do not want to play them. So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I agree with you on Gary Trent. It was tough to see Norm Powell go, but I'm excited about Gary Trent Jr. I love the development of Chris Boucher. I think he's coming along beautifully. You see now a Utah Watanabe, what he can do. I think he can be a good second unit player. You look at the growth of Malachi Flynn now that he's getting an opportunity to play, and his stage presence and his confidence and the joy that he plays with, and the recent acquisitions of Kemp Birch and Gillespie. Quite frankly, if they had those guys all year at the 5 spot, they'd probably have 5 more wins just because they're quicker, they're more mobile, they're better suited to the modern NBA game right now. So those guys are a big pickup. So I think in spite of the going forward. I've been through, they've made the playoffs the last 7 years. I think people have been spoiled by it a little bit. We have a lot of new fans that jumped on the bandwagon a few years ago that have never experienced losing. Again, they're spoiled. I've been here 23 years. I've been through a lot of bad years. And I consider the circumstances bad because they have to play in Tampa and all that and the pandemic. That part of it. But, there's a lot of challenges every NBA team has. But to me, I still find joy in a lot of what's going on. And I still find reason to believe that there's a lot of good things coming down the pike.
Yeah, I've always liked Kemp Birch a lot, and Gillespie has given them some really good minutes. They just extended him to another 10-day contract. You kind of answered my next question there, but so assuming the Raptors do get fully healthy, which is a legitimate question mark with these new big man signings that they've done over the last couple of weeks, I think they can definitely win one of those playoff spots. And how do you feel about them in like a first round matchup against the Nets or the Sixers or something like that? Like I think they can still be competitive.
Think about it. They beat them twice in Milwaukee. They've beaten Brooklyn in Brooklyn. They've beaten Philadelphia this year. So you think those guys want to play them? With the championship pedigree that their top guys have in Siakam, VanVleet, Lowry, Anunoby, Boucher has a ring on his finger. I mean, do you want to play the Raptors? I'm sure those teams are like, I don't want to deal with those guys. Give me Chicago. Give me Indiana. Give me the Knicks. Give me one of those teams. I don't think you want to have anything to do with the Raptors. So, yeah, they can make noise. They can be dangerous.
Yeah, and come trade deadline, all those teams were looking at Kyle Lowry too, and I'm pretty sure they don't want to be versing him with his experience, his switchability. It's going to be a tough matchup for them for sure.
Yeah, and again, when you look at a guy like Lowry, obviously, people say, why did they trade him? Well, it takes two to tango. You got to have a dance partner. You got to have a team that's willing to give you the value that you value him at. And to me, I agree with what Masai Ujiri said at his press conference. He said, we really value Kyle Lowry and what he brings. And maybe other teams want to, they want to give you 50, 60 cents on the dollar. The best trades are a lot of times the ones you don't make. And if someone's going to try to fleece you and not give you what you think that guy's worth, that will set your franchise back even more. So you don't do it. And to me, I look at what Lowry brings. It's very similar to what Chris Paul is doing right now in Phoenix. He's an older point guard. But you look at what he's done for the Suns right now. And I think Lowry, you put him on a lot of teams in the NBA, he takes you from good to very good to great because of not only what he brings statistically, and people get too caught up in the stats, it's the intangibles that he really impacts you on in terms of accountability and toughness and leadership, not tolerating losing, not tolerating poor play or guys taking plays off or not playing smart. He's not putting up with that nonsense. And you put a guy like that in your room, everybody sits up and stands at attention.
Yeah, totally. And it's for all those reasons, I think, at least both Venushan and I agree that Lowry should be in the Hall of Fame one day. I don't know if that's just bias because we're obviously massive Toronto fans, but that's how we feel about Kyle Lowry. He's that good to us.
Well, I think when it's all said and done, he'll have a compelling case, and obviously how he finishes his career now with the Raptors and or another team, whatever happens, kind of how he closes the deal here in the last few years will, again, probably help his case. But I think he has a legitimate shot. Probably not a first ballot guy, obviously, respectfully. But I do think when it's all said and done, he'll have a resume that will be a very compelling resume to give him a great opportunity to potentially get in.
Yeah, 6-time All-Star. I can't think of too many off the top of my head, too many 6-time All-Stars who have a championship who aren't in the Hall of Fame. So he's gonna have a pretty good case when it's all said and done, especially if he has another All-Star appearance somewhere down the line.
I agree.
Okay, Jack, one more question, one more topic before we let you go. So obviously you cover the NCAA tournament every year for TSN. It was a strange tournament this year, but a really, really exciting one with some huge moments that are going to live in history forever. So obviously you're expected to be an expert, and you are an expert for the Raptors, one NBA team. Obviously, all the other teams in the league, but for the tournament, you have to know kind of the ins and outs and all the players of every single school in the tournament, and even ones that miss the cut for the tournament. So what kind of goes into getting prepared for that? How much research, how much washing do you have to do? And just what's that experience like versus doing play-by-play or color commentary for an NBA game for the Raptors?
Oh, it's overwhelming. I'm not going to kid you. I've been doing it probably 20 years, I think. I used to do it for Sportsnet, and now I do it for TSN. And I'll never forget Clark Kellogg with CBS when the Raptors, back then Sportsnet asked me to do it. I talked to Clark. I said, how do you prepare for this? It used to be 64 teams. Now it's 68. And he kind of gave me his little system. And so what I try to do on off nights is, obviously I watch a lot of NBA games, particularly getting ready for teams that we're playing in the future. And I'm also, doing a ton of channel surfing, watching college basketball as well. I really dig deep into it starting in January, where every morning I'm up and I'm reading articles about college basketball, and then it really builds in intensity. And then when you get into mid-February on, it's really intense. Just trying to do your homework on, you're keeping an eye on bracketology and potential NCAA teams. So you study them. You try to watch them if you can. Read their box scores, or just try to stay familiar with the rankings of teams are, the top 3-4 players on every team. And then when you get really close to the playoffs, it's like being in college all over again. It's like cramming for a final exam, you know? So I would consider it stressful, and I love it. I love it. After the first 4 days of the tournament, I'm absolutely exhausted. But after the first 4 days of the tournament, I totally have my head around it. But it usually takes me the first 4 days. When we get to the Sweet 16, then it's you're able to really zero in. But when we're trying to watch 4 games at once, it's really, really difficult. But again, I've done it for so many years. I have my own little system in terms of how I prep, how I watch games, what I watch for, key stats, key storylines, all that stuff. So I've had a lot of fun with it, and the crew that I work with this year, Kate, Kia, Kayla, we had a lot of fun doing it, and they do a tremendous job.
Yeah, the stress doesn't show. You just look calm, cool, collected, up there, just like you've known everything your whole life. The stress does not show through at all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I got you fooled.
All right, Jack, I think we've taken up enough of your time. We'll let you get home now. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really, really, really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, guys, my pleasure, and all the best, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for having a basketball podcast. Thanks for talking basketball. So that's great. I really appreciate it. And again, as I said before, the best is yet to come. The sport is growing. And again, I'm excited to have just a small little part in that growth. And I hope to see the sport continue to grow big time across Canada. So thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Jack,
Thank
so
you.
much. Hope we can talk again sometime.
You got it, guys. Have a great night.
You too.
You too.
All right. All the best.
Okay, thank you so much again for Jack Armstrong coming on the podcast. That was just a huge moment for both of us as lifelong Raptor fans, a huge moment for our podcast. We just had a really, really great time talking to him. We'll be back next week like we always are. You can check us out on Instagram at Stretch the Floor Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, STF Clips, where we post the best clips from this podcast. A bunch of Jack clips are going to be going up there, so look out for that. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review, leave a rating. It all really, really helps. But other than that, we'll see you guys back next week when we're going to be talking more basketball.